Welcome to the 2021 Economic and Preparation Channel. I'm your host, Tony. Thank you for joining me on this Monday, November 15th, 2021. Please be sure to hit that subscribe button for the latest financial news, pure 100% truth. As we approach the middle of this month, we're going to be talking about the new Biden infrastructure bill that is on the way past this weekend. And we're also going to be talking about the cities workers are telecommuting, the rise of automation and telecommuting, working from home, and how downtowns could possibly be just meeting spots. Like instead of in the skyscrapers, it'd be entirely possible. It could be ghost towns in terms of economic activity downtown. It's going to be reversed as we head into this second Great Recession or Depression, as some people said. And we're going to talk about the article that says that low interest rates are here to stay forever. This is what one asset manager says, according to CNBC.com. We'll discuss that as well. So welcome once again. We're going to get right into it today, right now. So right here, we have the Biden to pass infrastructure bill into law, authorizing big spending on roads, broadband, EV chargers, and more. Now, as you know, President Biden has been touting this since he got into office, and the Democrats as well as some Republicans, that we're finally getting it done, quote unquote, to the president. Now, this is both a good transition and a bad transition. It is great that the money is being authorized, over $1 trillion, okay, is being authorized here to be spent. And so there's some good components. Obviously, broadband, roads, everything needs to be upgraded in America in terms of infrastructure so we can compete with China, India, Singapore, Russia, Japan, South Korea, etc. We cannot compete on a global scale unless we update our infrastructure. Now, many would argue this should have been done roughly 15 or 20 years ago, but we were fighting wars in Afghanistan and things of that nature. And so, to Biden's credit, he has ended the war in Afghanistan officially. We're starting to scale back at least some of the resources that the Department of Defense is using and dispersing that in other areas, mainly into our infrastructure, DOT, Department of Transportation, Department of Interior, Department of Education. So those are some great changes that is going to be made in this country. But as you know, everything comes with an opportunity cost, okay? And so President Biden is saying we're going to spend the money now, and then we're going to hope 2 to 3 years down the road, this thing's about 2 or 3 years down the road, that everything is going to turn out fine, that there's no hyperinflation, and that number two, that the purchasing power of the dollar does not go tremendously down. That's what we're praying and hoping for in the next 2-3 years. We won't know that until the other side of the infrastructure bill. So it'll probably be just before President Biden is finished his first term, somewhere around 2024, 2025 is when we're going to feel the effects of all this printing and spending. And will it be just about done with the construction of a lot of these projects for railroad and infrastructure projects? So at a price tag about $1 trillion. Now, some of this money is going to be wasted. That's the thing. That's the bad side about. That's one of the cons. That some of this money is going to be wasted in administrative tasks, committees and all of that, studies and all of that stuff. They pork roll or pad up these bills that they like to call it. But the infrastructure bill passed the Democratic-controlled Senate in a 69-30 vote. That's on August the 10th. Senate Minority Leader, Mitch McConnell, among the 19 Republicans who supported the measure. Then it cleared the House of Democratic-run House of Representatives November the 5th, 228 to 206, with 13 House Republicans backing it. And so now the deal is finally on its way. However, the American Society of Civil Engineers gave the infrastructure our current infrastructure, a C- as a report card in a 2021 report. So you can see our infrastructure does need work. And so the $1.75 trillion social spending and climate package known as the Build Back Better plan, you've heard that being touted. We hope things build back better, but we can't promise that things are going to be build back better, because right now we're dealing with a 10% inflation rate right now. Food, gas, and utilities, as well as other commodities that we use every day, that everyday Americans use, is going up in price, and they don't know when that's going to stop. And I've told you before that it's not going to stop until after the summer of next year, this 2022 that we're going into. It's not going to stop till after the summer, and by that time we're going to have problems in the housing market, because it's going to be cooling down as well. As you can tell right now, the sales is not as brisk as it was. People were offering, 20, 30, 40,000 above asking price and all these things in many of these places in the Midwest and Northeast and all of that stuff out west. But that stuff is going to come cooling down. But moving on from that, I didn't want to digress too much. Minnesota City woos telecommuters with robust internet and cash. A lot of people have been saying that telework and automation is the way of the future. I totally agree. As you can see, in places like the Minnesota City and the state council and other cities in the upper Midwest, they interviewed a couple people here, according to usnews.com. One family was trying to relocate to the city of Bemidji up in northern Minnesota, and the program offered $2,500 to cover moving or telecommuting expenses of people who moved to Bemidji from more than 60 miles away and bring a job with them. That was according to Minnesota Public Radio. So telecommuting, telework, you name it, is the way of the future, because companies understand, both public sector and private sector understand, that to save money on these big skyscraper leases or these big commercial leases, they can save money and time by just having the people work from home, or if they have to venture out, work at a community space like a WeWork, they call it, or some other kind of center where they can build one space where everybody can share a cubicle or share a workspace. That is the way of the future. We already have rideshare available with cars and things of that nature, Uber and Lyft and all these other car share apps and things. Now we're moving on to work share, and telecommuting is not going away. It's possible that many workers, both public and private, even after the health crisis ends, could be looking at working from home 3 days or more. Whether you're in IT, engineering, a lawyer, accounting, even doctors, telemedicine, whether you're a nurse, a lot of the jobs, I would venture to say in the future, over 70% of the jobs that are still left when all of the dust settles from this great recession or depression that we're going into will be by, obviously virtual telework. And also, it's entirely possible, according to CNBC.com, that we will see low interest rates forever. I don't think so. I don't agree with this article 100%. The Federal Reserve Bank, as you can see here, will raise interest rates, and that's going to be starting in March of 2022. They have us slated for July 2022 is when they're going to make the first cuts. But I believe next year they're going to have to make four raises of these interest rates, because the inflation is still going to be persistent. And all of the Federal Reserve Banks is going to have to, commissioners are going to agree on raising rates. And as you can see now, the mortgage rates have already been rising. And other rates, the 10-year T-note has been rising as well. So things are starting to pick up. And you're going to see this, like I said, things get bad. Now, this guy, Mr. Howard, says that he expects from that Federal Reserve will probably only start raising rates in the second half of 22. I don't agree. I think they're going to do it sooner. They're going to do it in March 22, the first half of 2022, and start raising the rates on top of that. And they would be late in doing so, because we'll already have inflation in double digit, as you can tell in many of our states around this nation. So he said that Representative Jim Ham told CNBC Tuesday that low interest rates and free money that we're seeing in many years risk creating asset bubbles. Well, we have a bubble in everything, ladies and gentlemen. We have an asset bubble. We have a credit bubble. We have everything bubble except a liquidity bubble in terms of actual real value cash available on hand. Because remember, the Federal Reserve Bank started out 2 years ago waiving the requirements on the amount of money that the reserve requirements. The banks used to have 25% of money on hand as reserves to lend toward each other. They came on and said no. They waived that requirement. So now the banks don't have to have any reserve cash on hand in a remarkable historic move. And so this is what we're facing in 2022. Coming up in the beginning, everybody enjoy the holiday season. We're coming up on Thanksgiving, first of all. I know people are skipping the Christmas. But Thanksgiving, holiday season, the retail spending, we get those numbers tomorrow for last month. So we get the spending numbers for the retail of October coming out this week, sometime on Wednesday or Thursday. And also some other numbers that you want to look out for are the earnings season for those companies as well. And as well as the production index, to see if the shipping crisis is going down or not. So those are some things we have to look forward to. And we have to understand that this is a marathon, not a sprint. Whether it's spiritual life, your emotional life, your physical, financial, mental life. When we're in the middle of the second inning or third inning of this collapse, which we are, okay, this is a marathon, not a sprint. So every prepping thing that you have, remember that you have to practice rotating those items out, in and out, okay? You know, first in, last out kind of thing, because this is going to be a long-term thing. As you can see, in 1 week, you may be able to get tuna cans or pasta or tomato paste. Next week, you may not be able to get it till 2 weeks later because of the shipping crisis. Same thing with car parts. A lot of people around have been reporting to me that they tried to get an alternator or a starter or a battery, and they're saying it's taking weeks to come in when they take the car into the shop. They're saying that Amazon, even Amazon Prime, is saying they're delivering car parts 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later. So you never know what may come up. It may be generators. You know, it may be flashlights. It may be something that you need. And that's why it's always important to take the time out to prepare each and every day. Whether it's $10 you have or $50, or maybe you have, you know, $5,000 or $10,000 laying around. Take that money and prepare, and don't, you know, waste it all in this overbloated economy, stock market, because what goes up must come down, ladies and gentlemen, and this is coming very close to the downward swing. We're almost at the top of the mountain right now as far as how much value they can squeeze out of the dollar, and in terms of, you know, how much they can keep printing and printing and printing money. So this is the last push, and that's why President Biden is pushing through the infrastructure, trying to get us upgraded, everything upgraded before there's no more money in the coffers in terms of spending, before they can't make money. They can't be able afford their debt on their interest payments, because the interest rates will rise. I'm predicting the interest rates will get as high as, I don't know, 7-8% maybe, not by next year, but within the next 2 to 3 years. And this will all be completed before 2025, ladies and gentlemen, the master plan. Once the interest rates rise to an unsustainable level, the dollar will crash. We'll go into a, you know, depression, which we're already technically in, but we'll go into an official depression. And then that's when the rebuilding will begin, and the takeover will begin in terms of America losing its status as, like, you know, the #1 superpower. And, of course, you know, China and some other countries will be coming in and swooping up the real estate and everything for pennies on the dollar, or whatever new currency they're going to be coming up with before we get to 2030 or after 2030. So much to think about, much to pray about. Be blessed, be safe. And it was Monday, and I'll talk to you very soon. Thank you for your support, ladies and gentlemen.